everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter, and I am here with a Mother's Day card project for you. You still have time to make your mother a homemade card for Mother's Day, and I hope this inspires you to do that. I am going to be using some products from Lifestyle Crafts. I'm going to be using the Bloom embossing folder. I don't know if you can see this pattern. This is one of my favorites from their embossing folder release. And I'm going to be using some dies as well. This die here is from the Nesting Lace Circles die. And I have links to all the products over at my blog, so be sure to check that out. And I'm going to be using the regular Nesting Circles die as well. Now this card is kind of a window card, so I've gone ahead and chosen my circle sizes based on that. This circle here is the one I'm going to be using for my window, and you can see that this one here is a little bit larger, and I have used that one to cut out my circle out of vellum. And I'm going to run that through using the Bloom embossing folder, and I'm just going to put the center of this pattern here kind of in the center of my circle, and I will run that through my die cutting machine. I'm also going to take this here. This is a piece of Coordinations cardstock from the Whitewash collection, and I've gone ahead and just cut it kind of to the size that I thought I would need and scored it. Now the reason that it's important for it to already be scored is that I need to be able to place this die on here and leave part of this to where the fold is not going to be cut. So what I'll do is I'll kind of just position this, and you can see here that this fold is not going to go completely across these lines here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this folded piece of cardstock through my die cutting machine and my embossing folder with my vellum circle as well. Now I've had lots of questions on these dies and embossing folders from Lifestyle Crafts if they do work with the Cuttlebug, and yes they do. They work with all the major die cutting machines. So I'm going to run over to my machine and run this through. Okay, so now you can see I've run this through and embossed that, and I've also cut out my card base here. Now the next step for me to do is actually to create this window on the card base. And like I said, I cut my circle out of the larger, or the vellum circle out of the larger circle of these nesting dies. And just one size down from that is going to actually be my window on the front of the card. So what I'm going to do is I am going to center this on the front of my card. And to keep this from kind of shifting around, I'm just grabbing a Post-it note here, or you could use some washi tape. And I'm just going to position this on the center of my card here, and I'm going to run it through the machine again. Now, make sure that when you run it through, it's not closed, because you will have a hole all the way through the front of your card, or all the way through your card. I only want a window on the front of my card. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine again. Okay, and now you can see I have a shaped window card. Now you can do this with any one of the nesting shapes dies, just as long as you have that fold and you don't allow the fold to be completely cut. So now I have my card and I can set this aside. And I just did want to note that I did also cut a white piece, just plain white cardstock, and I will be placing this on the inside. Now, there's two ways you can do this, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So let me go ahead and set this aside, and I'm going to work on this piece here. Now, in order to create some color and to kind of match that yellow that's on the front of my card, I'm just going to take a yellow stamp pad here. This just happens to be Daffodil Delight from Stampin' Up! And I am going to place this on a piece of white scratch paper here, and I am just going to drag my ink pad across this. Now, I am not smushing the ink pad at all. I am just letting it glide across the top of the paper, and that way it's only hitting those raised areas. And I'm doing it on the part where the texture is coming up. So I'm just dragging that across and putting some color on those raised areas. Very gently, light touch. And there you can see I have my colored piece of vellum here. Now I've gone ahead, that vellum does take a little bit of time to dry, so I've gone ahead and done one ahead of time, and you can see that that's all dried there. The next thing I'm going to do is bring in this piece of, it is the same whitewash collection coordinations. It just happens to be the back side of this where it's colored, and I am going to just take my stamp here, and I have some Versamark ink. Now this stamp says Mother. This strip is cut at 5/8 of an inch. It's just slightly larger than a 1/2 inch, and I am going to stamp that here. It says Mother, and I'm going to use some white embossing powder to emboss that greeting. Now, a little tip I will show you, and it will be hard to see on this because of there's not a whole lot of contrast, but sometimes on these, when I put the embossing powder, say, you know, there's like a little opening on the E, but the embossing powder tends to settle in that little opening. I just take my paper piercer and just kind of scratch the middle of that out so that I end up with my hole in my E, if that makes sense to you. Okay, so now I have this heat embossed, and what I want to do is this is actually going to be inset in the window. So I am going to take this same circle that I used for the window, and I am going to run this strip through my cutting machine again. And I'm just going to kind of use my grid mat to kind of line this up, make sure it's straight across and where I want it. I might move it down just a tad here. And I'm kind of putting it towards the right side of this circle here. So I'm just lining that up, and then I can use my Post-it note again to keep this in place, and then take it over to my die cut machine and run it through. See that I have my little strip here that will sit perfectly inside the little window that I created. Now I'm going to bring all these pieces in and kind of start putting it together. So this, like I said, will sit kind of on that circle. But what I want to do is attach this inside of my card base. And how I'm going to do that is with a little bit of liquid adhesive here. I'm going to use this Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. Now I don't often use liquid adhesive, but for this application, a liquid adhesive is great to put vellum on. And this Tombow Mono Multi-Glue really is a good glue. You don't have to use a whole lot of it, and I just kind of squeeze a little out and then spread it around with the nozzle. Okay. And then the purpose of this white, now if you can see here, because the inside of this cardstock is yellow, you kind of lose a little bit of that yellow. It's almost like a tone on tone rather than a, you know, there's not enough contrast, in other words. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and cut this white piece. Now you can do one of two ways. You can either put this on and have it be your card backing so you can write on the white part, and when you close it, it will give you that contrast. But what I want is that even when the card is open, that you're going to get that contrast. Now, if the card was open and this was on my backing, you can see that I would lose kind of some of that contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this down. I'm just going to fit this on here, kind of how it goes, and then I'm going to use some scissors and just trim some of these off here. Let's see, I have like 1, 2, 3 that it kind of affected, so I'm just going to kind of trim it just like that, and I can, you know, do some more trimming if I need to. But I'm actually going to place this down on the top part of the inside of the card. So I have that sandwiched in there, and then my last few steps is just going to be to add a little bit of embellishment to the front of this card. So I'm going to start with my sentiment piece here, and I'm just going to add some foam dimensional adhesive to the back of this to attach it to the front of my card. And then I'm going to add some pearls because there's nothing like some pearls for a little Mother's Day card here. I want to go ahead and put that down. And I'm going to use this little bit here, about 4 of these little ones that are already into a strip. 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to put those leading into my sentiment here. Then I'm going to take another piece of vellum here, and I am going to punch out just a little butterfly. And that butterfly is going to attach right here to my sentiment strip. And I'm just going to use a little bit of glue on the center of the body of the butterfly. My last step is just going to be to add some pearls to the center of this kind of flower shaped bloom here. So I'm just going to vary the sizes a little bit here. It's going to be to take this sanding block and kind of sand the edges of this card here, and that just allows the yellow that is the base of this Coordinations cardstock to kind of come out a little bit more and tie in that yellow, so you can see that kind of exposes that yellow that's underneath that. And that's kind of the cool thing about this Coordinations cardstock, is exposing that different color that lies underneath. Okay, and there you have a very simple yet beautiful and elegant Mother's Day card. You could change out the sentiment by any means and make it for any occasion. It's just beautiful and feminine. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you will go over to lifestylecrafts.com, check out their very cool dies and embossing folders and supplies that they have over there. Remember, if you use the coupon code GLITTER over at lifestylecrafts.com, you can get 20% off your orders. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.